Welcome on into this week's episode. This week we will be reviewing the UCLA game and previewing Oregon State. So let's jump right into it. So UCLA at Utah. Obviously, Utah comes out with the win 14-7 in kind of uh, a sloppy game, I would say. And maybe not the most fun game for fans. Not a ton of highlights in this one. So let's start with the defense. The defense, obviously, I think, was the star of the show. The defense held them to one touchdown drive. They only allowed a few drives of any consequence at all to UCLA. They forced a ton of three and outs. And obviously, the highlight of the game was the pick six on the first play by Corinne Reed. I thought that that was really just a rookie mistake from Dante Moore. Looking back at that replay of the Corinne Reed pick, like, where was he even throwing that to? Like, it feels like if Corinne Reed didn't pick that off, one of the corners had a really good shot at picking that off. It seemed like he, was obviously rattled. This is the most intense stadium that he's played in. This is his first start against kind of, a big time college football program, and it showed. So, yeah, I think we were very fortunate on that play. Corinne obviously made an amazing play on that ball, caught it cleanly out of the air, and just took it straight back to the touchdown. No questions asked. The defense overall was amazing. Obviously, we had a ton of sacks. I think we had 7 sacks. Let me check that. Yes, we had 7 total sacks, 3.5 from Joan Ellis, one from Vaki, half a sack from Fano, one from Tanavasa, and one from Tafuna. So obviously the number that sticks out there is 3.5 from Jonah Ellis, and whoa, boy, did he look freaking amazing. That dude was flying all over the place. He was just dominating the game. He looked a little bit like his dad out there. I think that that bodes well for his future and the fact that, he's technically still not even listed as a starter on the depth chart. He's still listed as a backup, which is just mind-boggling. Defensively, obviously, incredible performance. We held them to, let's see how many yards per rush, point 0.3 yards per rush. And of course, that's taking sacks into account. But I mean, their running backs, TJ Harden averaged 2.8 per carry and Carson Steele averaged 2.6 per carry. This is a team that came into this game being one of the most prolific rushing attacks in the entire conference, in the entire country. And Utah just completely shut them down. Dante Moore's stats, well, he did throw for a good number of yards, 15 of 35, 234 yards, 6.7 average, 1 TD, 1 interception, and 11.6 QBR. This probably isn't as extreme of a quarterback example as someone like maybe Jaden Daniels was, as far as, like performance and Rice Eccles, but it wasn't that far off. And a lot of those yards that he had came on, kind of garbage time in the fourth quarter. Like, think of like kind of the Graham Mertz Florida game where he ended up throwing for like 330 yards, and you're like, how in the world did that even happen? But it's just empty calorie yards, empty calorie performance a little bit there. I do think that he has the tools in the future to be great. Looking at him, I was pretty impressed by a lot of what I saw. I think he has really, really good touch on the ball. I think his accuracy leaves a lot to be desired, but that just comes with reps. But yeah, I mean, I think he's got the tools to be a really special quarterback, but just not yet, not against Kyle Whittingham in his first really true road game start, against a tough environment. I know they played at San Diego State, but I'm not going to really classify that as like a tough road game. Yeah, but I think they'll be fine. I think UCLA has a good team overall. Let's talk a little bit about the DBs. I think that they played well in this game. I think that coming in, someone that we were really worried about was J. Michael Sturdivant. He had 3 receptions for 60 yards, and most of that damage came on that 41-yard reception along the sideline that Moore threw to him. I thought that Utah's defense did a really good job of, keeping the skill position players in check as far as the DBs went. I think that there were a few shots that Dante Moore missed that maybe could have changed the complexion of this game. There was the one drop TD pass, and he just overthrew two guys that were wide open as well. I think that those issues aren't really related to personnel, say, or someone just getting like totally beat. I think that that is the call coming in late and them scrambling and them not being assignment sound. I do think that we need to get the calls in earlier because we can't keep scrambling like this because we're going to let guys free. And I guarantee you, Caleb Williams is going to hit that guy. I guarantee you, Penix is going to hit that guy. Bo Nix is going to hit that guy. We can't allow that to continue on when we play teams with better quarterbacks and teams with better offenses. I thought Teo Johnson playing free safety was really, really interesting in this game. I love that three safety look because both Bishop and Vaki are such good disruptors along the line and in the box. And so having Teo that can kind of take over that deep responsibility as that free safety and allowing Bishop and Vaki to be used as more kind of like weapons on defense, I think it's going to make us so hard to score on. So I really, really love that look. So yeah, defensively, just trying to see if there's anything else that I want to talk about here defensively. A really, really, really strong day for the defense. Obviously, this defense is at an elite level. I think that's fair to say. Teams are only averaging 9.5 points per game on them, and that's with 3 of our 4 games being against like bona fide Power 5 teams. So that's pretty impressive. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the offense, where maybe this section won't be as much glowing praise as the last section was. I think that, contrary to popular belief, the offense actually was all right in the first half. I don't really have a lot of problems with it until the second half starts. In the first half, I think that we were a lot more willing to, take risks, to throw the ball, to, kind of put it in Nate's hands. And then in the second half, we just weren't. Something that surprised me about this game is it seemed like we almost didn't pass at all the second half, but we still had more passing yards than we did rushing yards. 117 passing yards to 102 rushing yards. I'm not sure what it is that makes Andy Ludwig or Kyle Whittingham not trust Nate Johnson, but I really feel like that whenever Nate Johnson has been given the opportunity to throw, he's done really, really well. Like, yeah, like he's not going to be the best quarterback in the country. We're not expecting him to be. I mean, before the Brandon Rose injury, this guy was QB4. Like, holding him to that standard is absurd. He only has 1 turnover in the games he played. And I understand that he's had trouble, with the snap or dropping the ball, but a lot of those have been almost no risk of turning it over because he's right there and can just get down on it or can pick it back up. So I think kind of the Nate Johnson stuff is a little bit overblown. I think he's performed really, really well for what he's been asked to do. Yeah, obviously in the second half, after we had that 14-0 lead and the defense was playing so well, we just went into total shut it down mode. We just, ran it up the middle 3 straight times in a row, and we would go 3-and-out, and then our punter would punt, and he was having a hell of a day too. The punter was having a hell of a day. He was killing it. Um, so yeah, there's really not much to say about this offense. I'm just pretty disappointed in kind of the lack of creativity and the lack of, I guess, drive to score. If we do have such an elite defense and we do trust them to win us the game, wouldn't that mean that we could play more? We could take more risks on offense rather than less? Because if we trust the defense that much to hold, why shouldn't we take risks? Why shouldn't we try to score as much as we can? Because we know we have them as a safety net in the back. I think that not taking risks allows the other team to keep it close, which puts more pressure on the defense. So I would be in favor of, since we do have such an elite defense, that means you can open it up a little bit more. It doesn't mean we just have to park the bus. I really think that, I don't know, I just have the opposite opinion, I guess, of what the coaching staff does and what that elite defense should mean for our offense. I think that it gives us a cushion to be able to make mistakes. I think it gives us a cushion to be able to try things. It gives us a cushion to be able to throw deep. It gives us a cushion to be able to throw the occasional interception if that happens, or have the occasional fumble. But we just need to go for it. We just need to open it up, and we just need to let it rip, come what may. Okay, let's talk a little bit about injuries. Obviously, Rising didn't play this game. Jaquindon Jackson went out really early with an ankle injury. I don't think that we're going to see him against Oregon State. Running back room in general is just completely beat up. Um, Micah Pittman obviously didn't play this game. Munir McLean didn't play in this game. Quite a few players still out on injury, of course. One other thing I want to talk about is the offensive line. I thought that they had a pretty poor showing on versus UCLA. I think that part of that is due to just how freaking good UCLA's front seven is, because they are really, really good. They have some dudes. Murphy brothers, Leatu Latu is just amazing. So part of it's due to that, but part of it they were just flat out, either whiffing on blocks, they weren't communicating well, weren't assignment sound, they weren't really getting the push I expected them to. So that's definitely an area that needs to be cleaned up, I think, going into OSU, for sure. Okay, so it's good to be 4-0. Let's move on from UCLA and talk a little bit about OSU this year. So this is the previous game that happened last year. Utah 42, Oregon State 16. Obviously, this was at home. Their quarterback play was just completely terrible last year. As you can see, they had 4 turnovers to 0 turnovers from Utah. They actually had more total yards and more time of possession, but I think that's probably due to just them kind of playing catch up and Utah being in complete control of the game. I do think this game was a lot closer than the score, though. I don't think this was a 26-point margin of a game. I think on average, this is probably like a 10-point margin of a game. I think that there really wasn't much that separated them in this game besides the turnovers. The 4 turnovers to 0, it's just going to be almost impossible to win when you do that. And so Oregon State has to just not do that, and I think that this game is a lot closer. I actually thought that they kind of ran the ball decently well on us. They got 4.6 yards per rush, which I think is a pretty good total. Utah obviously got 5.2, so they were running effectively as well. Utah was definitely the better team today, but I definitely don't think that that margin of victory is kind of indicative of how good Oregon State was, or how good um, they played in this certain day. Okay, so let's move on. The first X factor that I would choose is Jonah Ellis and the defensive line. I think the defensive line needs a really, really strong showing on Friday, and I think that this is a really important unit on the team. Oregon State prides itself on having a really, really strong offensive line, and I think they do. I think their offensive line is really good. I think that they're better in run block than they are in pass block, and I think that they are going to try to establish the run. We know they are. They're a program that's very similar to Utah in that way, where they run first. They want to get those free yards on the ground, and they run that wide zone scheme that Utah has struggled with in the past, similar to what we saw at Baylor, although they did shut down Baylor really well in that running game. I think we need a similar performance from the D-line. The D-line needs to be able to stop the run and get them an obvious passing down so they can pin their ears back and go after DJU. I think if they get in that zone and they can pin their ears back and go after DJU, I think that we're going to force a lot of mistakes, a lot of habit plays, a lot of negative plays. We're going to get sacks, we're going to get interceptions, and we're going to just, good things are going to happen generally if we can stop the run, because then it puts them kind of into an uncomfortable situation for them. So I think the defensive line is a huge X factor in this game. The next X factor is Nate Johnson. I don't think Cam Rising is going to play this game. I think that with the bye coming up after this game, he's going to see that as an opportunity for 2 more weeks of rest with no risk of, getting banged up or getting re-injured. And he's going to say, okay, I'm just going to sit out this 1 more game and then come back after the bye, whether we're at 4-1 or 5-0, and really hit the ground running. Have that warm-up game at Cal and then travel to USC. So I do not expect to see Rising this game. I think Nate Johnson is a huge X factor here. Because are the coaches going to let him throw? I feel like when they've let him throw, good things have happened and good drives have been put together. If you think about the Baylor game, we put together great drives when he threw. And if you think about even UCLA, the drive that we scored a touchdown on was the one that we opened up the game the most. They struggled to guard us, and Nate made a couple really good throws to score touchdowns there. I think Nate is capable of it. And I think especially against an Oregon State team whose DBs I'm not 100% sold on, I think that he can exploit that. I think we saw Cam Ward exploit that with Washington State last week. Obviously, I don't think Nate is quite at the level of Cam Ward yet, but I do think that there are yards to be had through the air. I think that they have a lot of inexperienced players. They have maybe one that's really experienced and really good, but besides that, they're pretty green. They're pretty fresh. I think we can exploit that. It all just depends to me if Andy Ludwig lets Nate have the opportunity, because he hasn't yet. He's kind of kept the training wheels on, where I think we kind of need to let him off. A game on the road against a top 25 team, we're going to need to score points. And to score points, we're going to need to throw in this game. Okay, let's move on to the next section. So keys to the game. So for Utah, here are what I think the three keys to the game are. Win the turnover battle. When you're going on the road to a hostile environment against a really, really solid team, you need to win the turnover battle, especially when you have a young quarterback. We've done that really well so far this year. Against Florida, against Baylor, against UCLA, we've won the turnover battle in all of those games. And I think that's a huge reason why we're sitting here at 4-0 rather than 3-1 or 2-2. I think it's going to be similarly crucial in this game. We can't make a lot of mistakes and expect to win. But the next point, we also have to throw downfield. So it's going to be a tough game, probably the toughest one yet. We have to try to exploit that back end. We have to try to find the gaps and the chinks where we can get chunk plays and where Nate can have easy reads, easy throws, and move the ball down the field. I really hope that Ludwig is scheming up something that can do just that, because I think that once we get chunk plays, it'll allow the running game to get off. We can't allow them to just stack the box like they did against UCLA, because I don't think 7 offensive points is going to win this game. I think we're going to need more than that. And the third key to the game for Utah is stop the run. Oregon State is going to lean on you heavily. They're going to want to run. That is what they are going to establish. That is their offensive identity, similar to Utah. They're going to run. Can Utah shut that down? No one has been able to run on Utah yet. No one. Is Oregon State going to be the first? I hope not. Utah needs to stop the run, because if Oregon State can run the ball, they can dictate the clock, they can take long drives, they can tire our defense out, and they can put a lot of pressure on the offense and probably cause us to make mistakes. We need to be the team controlling the line of scrimmage. We need to control the ball. We need to control the clock. We need to make them kind of the one chasing us, and we need to be in the lead, I think. Let's talk about Oregon State's keys. The first one is win the line of scrimmage. They're going to need to keep DJU clean when he throws, and they're going to need to be able to generate push in the run game. They're also going to need to stop our run game and pressure Nate heavily when he throws. Winning the line of scrimmage is where this game starts for the Beavers. If they can do that, there's really not much that Utah's going to be able to do offensively or defensively. The second one kind of follows along in the same vein, which is establish the run. Oregon State, like I mentioned, heavy run first team. If they get the run game going, that's going to go heavily in their favor, because they'll be able to dictate the pace of the game and they'll be able to kind of control. And the third one is pressure the quarterback. Nate is young and he's inexperienced, and every single quarterback does worse facing pressure than they do in a clean pocket. It's just how football works. If they can pressure Nate, force him into some bad throws, maybe an interception, maybe a sack or two, maybe a turnover, they're going to be sitting pretty, because Utah's offense isn't good enough to be giving up free possessions to the other team or to be making vastly negative plays. Utah will need to play clean. With how their offenses look, they can't afford anything else. Okay, let's move on to the next section. So this is predictions. Obviously, it's a solo episode today, so we're just doing my prediction. And my prediction is Utah wins 20-13. I think that the defense is real. I really do. I think that this is our best defense since 2019 for sure, and it might even pass 2019 by the end of the year. I think that they're going to stop the run. I think that they're going to force DJU into some bad situations, and I think that they're not going to score that many points. I really think that this defense is elite. I really think they're going to travel, and I really think that they're going to shut down Oregon State. Offensively, this is where I'm less confident. I think that Ludwig has been incredibly vanilla so far this year. He hasn't really shown anything that he hasn't had to. This game, he's going to have to show some stuff. And I think he does. I think that Nate makes the throws he has to because of they're not able to stack the box. The running game gets going a little bit. Maybe we see a breakout from John Randall, the freshman who's rumored to be playing this week, or maybe Chris Curry or Jalen Glover continues strong play. I think the offense is going to do just enough, probably with the help of a few short fields from the defense, to score 20 points, to do enough to win. I think 20 points is enough to win this game. I really believe in the defense to that level. So, there's my prediction. I think Utah is going to win 20-13. I think this is going to be a tight game. I really think that this could go a variety of different ways. Utah typically has a stinker on the road. I'm hoping that this isn't it, and I'm hoping that Utah pulls it out. But I wouldn't be shocked if Oregon State won. I respect them a lot. I think they're a really, really strong team. They're going to be hungry coming off of a loss to Washington State. So thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe on YouTube. This is going to be uploaded to Spotify as well if you prefer it in podcast form. Yeah, please comment what your prediction is, what you think the keys to the game are, who your X factors are going to be. Love to hear from you, talk to you, and we'll see you guys later.